And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. Vlogcast that comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. This Vlogcast started as a comedy show, spite the Streisand effect, because fuck! Ah! Part of this is to follow through with the old adage that sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. I'm your main host. I'm known as Shujin Tribble, and you can find me pretty much everywhere under that name. That's Shujin. No, I'm not going mad. No, I am mad, so that's part of why tonight's going to be the way that it is, and we're going to do our damnedest to not turn this into a traditional Power of 10. That's not us telling you what's going to happen. That's my suggestion to remind the rest of the staff we're going to do our best to not turn this into a... It's not really time for that. From the right-hand coast, UnrenownedTech, good morning.
I don't know. I can't tell. The sun's not up yet.
It's got a fair point.
Yeah. But you know what? I will actually call it a good morning for one reason only. That one reason is 1 hour. I get an extra hour of
That's
sleep
right.
today.
We go back an hour.
Honestly, let's roll back to 1 hour and then stop messing with it.
I'd be fine with that.
From the Midwest of the U.S., Brigid Fitch gets to join us again. I forgot to announce the full name last time. That's my fault. Hi.
Hi, y'all. It's still evening here.
And over there on the left coast, fortunately not bouncing north to south through the latitudes again, Io Cloud. Hi, darling.
Actually, I'm kind of bouncing through the latitudes. We're currently just on the south side of the California border with Oregon.
Yeah, but you're not actively through them.
No, I'm not on the SkyTrain. I'm not on the West Coast Express. I'm not on the Candle Line. I'm in a hotel room, and it's warm, and I'm not doing 1,000 miles an hour, and I got my car imported through customs. Don't mess with U.S. customs. Don't say that your girlfriend or wife or whatever you're importing her into the U.S. because the border guard will look at you funny and try and pull you over to do a whole bunch of other questions. I'm so glad I had my resident alien card and handed it over. Yeah, we already imported me 2 years ago. This is my stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, would you like to import your car? We don't really want to do it right now, sir. Oh, yes, you can. You can do it right now, and I can make it really, really easy for you. How much is it going to cost us? Nothing. It's American made. What? So my car is now in the States, and so is the remains of my life back from Canada, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
I have my baby.
Yeah.
I have my baby. She got detailed at the dealer. She got new brakes. She got everything done to her to make sure that she wasn't just roadworthy, but she was ready to run. And I figured out the name for her. Her name is Hummingbird, but I call her Birdie for short. Because she wants to go. She wants to run.
Very cool. I forgot to change the camera settings. I was wondering why there was so much of my room being shown off. Hi. So, it's good to be back with you guys. As we said at the top, yeah, this is definitely going to be one of those episodes where we're not expecting it to turn into a swear fest. There is the very likely potential for it because of the contentious nature of what we're going to be dealing with. So we're going to do our damnedest to make sure that we are not really crossing over that line like much at all. There is no official thing from YouTube or anything like that. Every once in a while, I do get a notice from them that says, hey, we flagged this video and we've pulled it for, well, the last one was medical misinformation. And I looked over what they were talking about. No, if you rewind 10 seconds, you will see that what you say is medical misinformation. Contextually, 10 seconds earlier, we're saying how People are legislating these things, and these are bad things. But there's no way for me to let YouTube know about it. It's just, do you want to contest it or not? Yes. Yes, I do. Okay. Well, we reviewed it and we're right, so you got nothing to do about it.
Mm.
So there's no official anything or other as far as to what we say, like cursing and whatnot. So it's kind of left to us, to our own devices. And, well, our devices involve coffee. And if you've got a problem with that, that's your problem. Because that's just more coffee beans for me. So thank you.
Nanaimo bars and all dressed chips. Do you know how many all dressed chips I've managed to smuggle across the border? Do you know how?
I know the answer to this one.
We're being recorded.
Yes, I know the answer to this one. All of them. So it's all of them. That's the answer. That's the answer. Those of you that might be listening right about now, I'm terribly sorry for your ears, but you knew what you were getting into once you got on this freaking show, man. It's your own damn fault. Tough shit.
Hey, I also have maple syrup candies, the hard candies. I'm set for at least a couple months.
You know, every once in a while, I think to myself, I've got like 2.5 acres, effectively, of trees, most of which, the vast majority of which are maple. I could tap them? Question mark. I mean, I could. I mean, what would I get out of it? A gallon, maybe.
You'd get maple sugar water, which is actually an electrolyte mix.
Yeah. And for those of you that don't know, it takes a lot of sap to make syrup. So can you do it? Yeah. You may not necessarily want to be doing it, but you can. And there is nothing quite like, oh, I've talked about it before. And I'll finish this off really quickly. When Tiny Trouble and I would go back and forth from Toronto back here to, the Buffalo area, we would go through the Lewiston-Queenston Bridge. I love that bridge. I don't want to go through the Rainbow. I don't want to go through the Peace Bridge. I want to go up to the Queen Lou because it is the less used bridge in the area, which takes us straight along the way to St. Catharines. In St. Catharines, there's a spot right near each other where there is a Harvey's and an oh God, I forgot what the name of the place is. The All Canada Supercenter, or whatever the name of it is. I forgot what it is.
Great Canadian Superstore.
Superstore. The problem is
Real Canadian
Superstore. The problem is that they've got a thing going on right now, for bad labor and whatnot. That, be that as it may, we would stop there on the way home, and we would load up on a lot of stuff that you can only get in Canada by comparison to, right nearby, without going through, like, Amazon. And I do my best not to go through Amazon for freaking anything. And I will tell you, the flavors of potato chips that you can get. Oh, yeah. When I say that all dressed chips are one thing, but getting barbecue rib flavored chips really does taste like it's barbecued ribs. Oh, and President's, I think it's President's Choice. I've linked to it before. The bottle of Canada syrup, maple syrup, in a glass hip flask is truly a thing of sipping beauty. There is nothing wrong with taking a shot glass, filling it a little bit with this stuff, microwaving it just enough to warm it up, and then sipping it like it was cognac. It is that good.
My grandfather told me that his mother would serve him a bowl of maple syrup for dessert.
I can see that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can see that.
I also picked up a cooler for cooling things. That's pretty much what it says on it. It's from President's Choice. It's from Superstore. and it's yellow. And it's tiny, and it's cute, and it's adorable.
So is it
They-
the no brand yellow?
Yes, it is. So now it gets to join my cup for sipping that I have back at our place.
Yeah. There's a brand that they carry in Real Canada Superstore that's literally called No Brand. And it is a very specific color of yellow with bold black text on it. Because it's effectively the house brand, but it is just no frills. It is what it says on the tin. It's just yellow and black. You can pick it out from everything. That it's the same way that you can pick out of everybody that's stuck on the highway. You can pick out a school bus because of its color. Exactly that kind of thing.
And I've got the no-name brand all dressed chips, and I've got Dare chocolate fudge, which I love those cookies. And I've got, well, I went to the dollar store, Dollarama or whatever it's called, and I went, oh, cherry blossom. Yeah, you're going into my bag. Yep. About 10 later. Same thing for the Canadian Arrow. Same thing for Coffee Crisp, because I like my Coffee Crisp. And I got given a box of half-eaten Halloween candy. Half-eaten as in half the box was already gone. Not that the wrappers were still, you know what I mean.
Oh yeah.
And I've been enjoying those little itty-bitty. And I'm thinking now, why didn't I go to the store and buy like 5 or 6 boxes of those? Because I was there on Halloween and I could have gotten them cheap. I was stupid. Oh well. But I found my Nanaimo bar mix, and I actually have some pre-made Nanaimo bars, and I've been slowly savoring them like a long-lost lover.
Yeah, maybe what we'll do is we'll find a way for everybody to like check out the individual products for themselves later too, because we might as well share the wealth, so to speak.
When I get home, I will take pictures of everything that I looted. And then there was the medicine. Canadian medical is crazy. Doctors aren't taking patients. My former doctor didn't want to see me because he was so booked. So I had to try one medical clinic, and they were booked almost instantly. And I went to another clinic an hour before it opened, and I was the 5th person there, and I was the only walk-in that they allowed to have as a walk-in. Everybody else had to be already a member of that clinic. And I came home with the equivalent of 3 months worth of my medicines for my heart and for my insulin and stuff for the price of one of my medicines in the United States, including EpiPens and glucometer. Your prices are crazy. Something has to be done.
And now all this can be yours as well. Isn't that wonderful? So we'll get things up and properly running. If you join us while we're recording, of course, feel free to not only do that, but to chime in over there on the live chat, because that's what it's there for. Stephanie, of course, is there. Is okay. Yeah, there's there. And UnrenownedTech is there. Okay, that's fun. I read that too quickly, Tech. I thought it said we must Linux the F-bombs, and I'm like, no, that's not what that. Shoot. Okay. That is literally what happened in my face.
No, we should dash RF the F bombs.
Yeah, we're not going to do that because I don't trust myself not to remember what the Linux commands are, because I know better than that. If there's one thing that I have learned running Linux and BSD, you do not issue a command until you have triple checked and sanity checked yourself, because if you don't already know, if it's not part of your muscle memory, you don't do it. You just don't.
Yeah, Linux is one of those that you need.
You need to know what you're doing.
Sorcery.
A little bit.
You need sorcery.
Little bit. Now, I want folks to understand, this is not because Linux itself is terribly difficult. The normal day-to-day stuff is perfectly fine. It's once you enter the terminal mode, you have to know what you're doing. That's when you can screw up. Otherwise, it's just like running Windows or Mac. Only better. But that's a whole other thing for later. We'll deal with that later. Let me get everything rolling because, you know, it's about that time. Actually, it's a little bit before that time. After that time? Whatever the hell. Time is an enemy. It robs us of life as it ticks away. Go ahead and argue with me on this point. I dare you. Please don't. I've got a schedule that I'm trying to keep, and I'm not doing a really good job of it. So, with 5 minutes on the clock, your 5-minute freestyle has started now. I've labeled this one static. There's as always, there's a couple of ways of dealing with this. If you don't remember, for whatever reason, what static is like on TV, it's still there. I mean, these days with digital tuning and digital signals, it's really tough. You don't hear the traditional anymore, at least not the way that we used to back in the analog era. And it turned out that, from what I understood, a good portion of that static, believe it or not, was generated from the electromagnetic fields coming from Jupiter, as I recall, because it had so much, and it directed, you know, stuff our way. Okay, fair enough. But in this case, in the social context, static is something that we've had to deal with for too long. And I think that's part of the reason why we have voter fatigue and news fatigue the way that we do. Static meaning that there is just this level of just noise. It's just a plateau that we've dealt with for so long. And I'm not going to attribute it to any one particular individual, Trump, because I don't think it's something that we need to rehash time and time and time again. People who don't have any kind of sense of quality whatsoever. What I'm trying to describe is how we've kind of bubbled at the surface of this whole damn thing, drowning in bad information, because the news cycles just keep hammering away at that top layer. And by hammering away, I don't mean side to side and squeezing us into it. I mean squeezing us down into it. The idea of drowning in information is something that I've heard about for a very long time. I remember there used to be a podcast literally called A Sip from the Fire Hose. And it was hosted by one of the guys that used to work over at Borland Software. Now, for those of you that are now kind of chuckling to yourselves, yes, I waited specifically for you because you're probably remembering the scene from the movie UHF, where you're allowed to have a sip from the fire hose. And what happened to that poor kid? Theoretically, it's kind of the same thing that happens to us. We keep getting hit with all this information, all this bad stuff. And the worst part about it is it hasn't changed in 8 years. Literally, the same garbage has been going on and pummeling into our ears and assaulting our senses and our sensibilities, our ideas of fair play, our morality, our statesmanship, our ideas of who is right and wrong, who is good and not. And I think that's the problem when we start getting into these news cycles coming into an election. Because now we have, as we did before, we have someone who is trying, desperately trying, to be a glimmer of hope. A spotlight, a beacon, a candle in the dark to try to say, hey, I know so much is shit. I know it's tough, and I know it's hard to see past all the other stuff that's going on right about now, but I'm trying. I'm trying, and I want to be here, and I want to be the lightning rod for the change that we need. I want to be the foghorn in the dark. I want to be that spotlight where you can actually see, yeah, I can see all the danger that's around us, but this is where I want to get to because this is where it's going to be better. We've said Officially, HCTV's stance is we want you to vote. We do. We want everyone to vote. We want everyone to have a say in how this stuff is supposed to work, because that's the fair part of any voting system. Everyone possible having a vote. But we also want you to be a well thought out voter. If I had just one wish from a genie, I've said it before, it's not to eliminate cancer. It's to eliminate willful ignorance. Because once you have people who cannot just pull in the static around them, then things just work themselves out. Things work out for the better. The freestyle is officially over, but I'm going to leave you with one thought. What we're going to end up talking about for the rest of the show has got everything to do with the U.S. election cycle right now. It's going to be a tough topic to get through without literally crying. I already am. Because I know some of the stakes. We know some of the stakes. The rest of the world knows some of the stakes. Just keep in mind, we're in this together, and if worse comes to worse, we will still be here for you. We'll do our damnedest, no matter how this plays out. So, if you end up feeling that you need a voice, we can't promise to be timely because we've all got our own lives, but if you need, please avail yourself to the Discord channel. And if you need us, just do an @everyone and just say, anybody around, I need a voice. We'll do our best to help you. That's a promise from me. That's a promise from all of us. We'll do what we can. Told you, I am already tearing up because I know how this is going to play out tonight. I'm not happy, but I'm going to do my best, and, well, you guys know full well, I try to be professional. I ain't always good at it, but I do my best. So we'll work it over. So at this point, it will be time for the Horrible Scopes. Let's go ahead and do this. If you know what your astrological sign is, cool. And if you don't, you can get yourself a D12 and roll it for yourself and just select for yourself from this way. And if you need one of those D12s with the cool squiggles on them, get in touch with a friend of the show, Heart of the Game Fredonia. They can sell it to you. They might even be able to ship it to you if you've got somebody in the United States, continental United States, the contiguous 48 United States. Or, of course, if you've got someone who can be a mule for you, we don't advocate anything illegal, but of course, I mean, dice are dice, man. People put stuff in places that they're otherwise not supposed to all the time. Your mileage may vary. It's Heart of the Game Fredonia. Hail, hail, Fredonia. Home of the Blue Devil. They're the shop with a mimic in the window that gets offered up to the school library during orientation that nobody knows where it was during orientation. I don't know where it is right now. Sorry. So, you might have already noticed the nights are starting earlier and they're lasting longer. You can tell that by how dark it is outside. It's always dark outside for me because, where I live and the time that we record. So, we can't help you out on that, but by letting you know we can help you, we'll let you know that it gets even worse if you've got a job that you have to fight to stay awake during these hours. So suit up, true believers. We're taking you on a trip to Dullsville, and Mystery Inc. is not invited. And those of you that know who Mystery Inc. is, Mystery Inc. is a far inferior series to the original. Thank you very much. I'm a purist from 1969. Screw y'all. Aries. This is going to be a tough one on us because it is, without a doubt, one of the dullest jobs, but it's also one of the most lucrative. Tax consultant. The job revolves around personal finances and tax liabilities and how to maximize take-home funds against tax returns and make sure your clients are following the law. So this week, nobody ever says they want to be a tax consultant as a kid. There's a reason for that. Listen to your inner child.
Chorus. Honestly, we're as stumped as you will be on this one. Clergy member. There's a lot of things that could be said about this job, only some of which are usable in polite company. But let's be clear here. A good portion of the image for this job depends a lot on what group you affiliate with. So this week, investigate the Church of Yes, as created by Kristen Applebee's.
Yeah, we had a very spirited discussion last night about what possible religious venues might be worthwhile. There are a couple of them that are of good, notable choice.
Gemini. Once seen as the newest extension of the office typing pool, you'll be doing the work of 7 people as data entry worker. Oh, sorry. Should we have called that position data entry operator? Honestly, it doesn't really matter. There's very little that can up the fun factor of this job. You'll be gathering information from various locations and condensing it into a new location, usually by trying to read someone else's handwriting and retyping it for storage later. So this week, there is a bright side to this job. You could just do it at home and work in your sleepwear. You do wear something to sleep, right? Keep that in mind when you have to video conference in, which is why I'm not video conferencing in.
Sorry, I had the microphone muted. Cancer Moonchild, for all the hype this job gets, which is very little, it's hardly as glamorous as it once was. You'll be a bank teller. And just to be clear, you will not get robbed nearly as often as you think you will. Between automated teller machines, yes, that's what ATM means, and online banking and high-def cameras, it's getting less and less likely that you'll be dealing with actual cash. So there's low incentive to actually try to rob the place. So this week, there's nothing more disgusting than the smell of newly minted bills from the Federal Reserve. Don't believe us? Go to the teller window and withdraw $100. But it has to have it in one package of new $1 bills. Obviously, this doesn't work in Canada, so thumbs up, Canada.
It depends on the bill. $100 bills still smell like maple syrup, I
Maple
swear.
syrup.
Yeah, but if you were to get a newly minted $100 bill in Canada, that's just a flappy piece of plastic.
You know, there is one
Them
real
fighting words.
there is one really cool feature about the Canadian currency, and that was during COVID when people were allowed to start interacting, like getting takeout and such. The tips would go into a jar that they would fill with a very a kind of sterilizing solution, right? And because the money is the way made the way it is, it didn't destroy the money. But if you try that with American money, you're going to ruin the currency.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Making
so it's a
sure.
lot more expensive to sterilize American money without ruining it than it is Canadian money.
Yeah, and I want to be sure that we're clear about this. My calling it effectively plastic is kind of a miswording of it. It does have a very high plastic content as opposed to American bills, where we would typically call it paper, but it's not really paper. It's a fiber-laced cotton paper polymer combination. It doesn't do really well for long term, and like I said in the scopes, as having been a bank teller for a while, newly minted bills are the worst. They are the absolute fucking worst.
Yeah. And the other, by the way, the other benefit of having money, a currency that's easy to sterilize, you don't have to worry about ass pennies. Go ahead, Google it. I dare you.
No, don't Google it. Don't.
Fortunately, Canada doesn't have to worry about that anymore because they got smart and they said, we're not going to be bothered with pennies anymore, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I brought back with me about 2 kilos of pennies in my piggy bank. I'm saving them because they're worth more just in the mail.
That's not a bad idea. Leo, are you good with remembering where every little scrap of paper is located? You know where all the proverbial bodies are buried. That's about the only saving grace for your job. File clerk. Yeah, consider what you think about that job already and chop your expectations off at the ankles. It's not a job with long-term security now. You know, now that so much stuff is being digitized. So this week, if you want this job, expect you'll have to pass some tough employment screening, since you'll likely either be in government, legal, or hospital arenas. So keep your nose clean, and you'll make some pretty good money.
Virgo, do you want to be part of a super secret government agency that answers to almost nobody and has the pulse of the nation on its proverbial fingertips? Well, forget about it because we're setting you up to be a postal service worker. Look, we're not going to sugarcoat this one. You might be working outside or inside, maybe sorting otherwise unsortable envelopes, or changing out a P.O. box is key. It's not glamorous, it's not exactly healthy, and it's sure as hell not going to get you an interview with the men in black. But you'll get first crack at all the commemorative stamps being printed. So this week, you don't really want this job. Check in with DHL and see if they have an opening instead.
Which means move to Canada.
Libra, are you listening? Good. Listen closely. Receptionist. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, the job was a glorified switchboard operator. But now it's so much worse. You have people waiting. You have people walking up to you to talk, deliveries asking where to go, customers setting up appointments, and the occasional person trying to scam their way into your facility. And you have to keep a smile on your face the whole time so you aren't off-putting to anyone, since you'll be the forward face of the company. So this week, practice saying this phrase: 1 ringy dingy, 2 ringy dingies, 3 ringy dingies. Sorry, not sorry. Some people will smile in understanding. They're the ones that will appreciate you and your job.
I love those skits. Scorpio, in a lot of stores, there's a job that's considered less than worthy, and you're getting it assigned this week. Cashier. In most countries, they don't care if you sit or stand for your shift, so long as you're making the transaction work well and don't break anything. So this week, there will be people putting combinations on the conveyor belt just to see your reaction. Just look them dead in the eye, raise an eyebrow, and don't say anything. See how long it takes for them to blush and look away. Beat them at their own game.
Ooh, I had a cashier 2 mornings ago, and she could not tell the difference between a quarter and a nickel. And I was counting out 21.80. And I had to actually divide the money up into, this is $1, this is 75 cents, and this is a nickel. That makes 80.
Sagittarius, I'm sorry. There's one I'm still waiting for us to get to. Oh, it's still coming up. Sagittarius, we know how much of a bigwig you like to play yourself off as, and honestly, we're kicking ourselves for feeding that. But that's what the stars picked for you. You get to be a business manager. You get to tell people what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and best of all, they need to do it or you get upset. So this week, you know all those orders you keep giving out. If you're given bad information by mistake and you tell people to do the wrong thing because of it, guess who looks like an idiot? That's right. It's all you, baby. Remember that. You owe your success to everyone else around you. The name is Gambit. Remember it. Oh, that's right. He's dead. Spoilers. Shit. Sorry. Never mind.
Capricorn. We don't know where this one came from or who thinks this is a way to make money, but somehow mathematician and an IRS approved job title. We don't understand what you need to do to earn a living that way, but we have an idea, and it's not a good one. So this week, do you remember the plot of Superman 3? Watch it again, and don't do that.
Yeah, the one that I was looking over and I'm just like, which one is it? Which one is it? It's this one coming up now.
Why do I? Aquarius.
Because
No
you
matter
wanted
how many-
Gemini. That's why. Because you wanted Gemini.
You did it
Bite
to
me.
yourself.
That's true.
Bite me. Bite me.
I might.
Slowly.
I will do things to my Luna when I get her out of the package, when I get her home. I will do things. And I will send you the pictures. Aquarius, no matter how many times you hear the expression PC load letter, what does that even mean? You will not. I need a. Hold on a second.
It's worth it. Trust us. Because I was specifically thinking of tech when I wrote this one.
Yeah. Okay, let's try this again. Take 2. Aquarius, no matter how many times you hear the expression PC load letter, what does that even mean? You will never not find that funny. You're about to become an office worker. Now, yes, there are people who want specific supplies like staplers, but there is one thing that you want to be sure you do not ever screw up. So this week, if you drop a tray of printer toner and it dusts the whole room, do not breathe, get out of there, close the door, and call for backup. I can confirm this.
2 fun facts. One about print toner is that if you get print toner on you, it reacts to heat. So you take a cold shower, you wash your hands with cold water to get it off. So if you really, really hate somebody and they've got toner on them, tell them, man, you got to get that off your skin before it gets stuck on there. You need to use like burning hot water to get that stuff off. Like I said, only if you hate them. And the other thing is if you really want to find out how old somebody is, ask them if they've ever seen the error code MP load legal. Pisces, you're such an outgoing personality that this one feels like it's against the Geneva Conventions to assign it to you. But we've got a job to do, and damn it, we're doing it. Accountant. Once you boil it down, your job is about doing simple math. Seriously. You know how to do percentages and multiplication? You've got half the job done right there. The other half is following convoluted instructions. So this week, spreadsheets are like baking. Do it right, and it's great for everyone. Do it wrong, and well, just follow the directions your predecessor left behind. Trust us. Just do it. Assuming they left any at all.
There is that. There is that. Those are your horrible scopes for this week. Remember, if you like what you got, cool. Don't care. But, of course, as always, if you'd like something nicer or naughtier for yourself or someone else, you can bribe me by asking. I operate mostly on vanity. Or, if you feel generous, you can actually bribe me over at the coffee page. Coffee.com/Icarus the Lunar Guard. As always, I'll have these posted online at the end of the week. Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, Discord, BlueSky. I'm going to be seeing about whittling down my my stuff over on Twitter and, reconstituting it over on BlueSky, and only keeping what's, hasn't come over yet. So, folks, if you've got an account over there, consider, moving, shifting, because, that'd be really nice. Because nobody wants to call it what the official name of the company is. That's why we keep calling it Twitter, because that's what it is. This is episode 515 on the docket, Your Honor. The home stretch in the USA. Like I said during the freestyle, I don't like that the show needs to be so US-centric. I really don't like that sometimes. And unfortunately, this is one of those opportunities where there really isn't too much of a choice. I mean, yes, we could be talking about another kitty-diddling payout from the Catholic Church in the United States. Again. Because that doesn't happen often enough. We could talk about how it's another record breaker, which was previously set by the same diocese. But right now, right goddamn now, we have to go ahead and kind of do our best to decompress the stress going into the finale of this election cycle, which has been brewing for over 4 years. And that is not hyperbole. Or, if you're reading the word hyperbole. We know full well that the former guy has not been in office for 4 years. But that doesn't change the fact that he's made it his mission to continue staying in the public eye. And the mass media has allowed it, which is part of the reason why I had the opening that I did. So, we're not going to be specifically discussing the candidates. We're going to try to stick to why elections are, how elections are, and what we get right, what we get wrong. Because, let's face it, the U.S. has got some good going for it. It's also got some shit going for it. And that's why I want to open up the floor to one of the absolute shit things that has ever taken place, as far as I'm concerned, in a state-run election. Because reminding everybody that here in the United States, the elections are run by the individual states. So 50 states plus all the individual territories and places that we have direct influence over, shall we say. No, I'm not happy about that piece. And that means that each state has its own slight variation on how they do things. Some, simple enough, you've got the functional equivalent of a bingo marker, and you go on the paper and you fill in the hole for whoever it is with a bunch of ink, and you turn it in, it gets computed and sent off to the state head, the Secretary of State, and they compile it and give out the news reports as the evening goes on. Simple enough. But I want to start off talking about what is the worst design that caused all kinds of issues for us in 2000 in Florida. The infamous butterfly ballot hanging Chad fiasco. For those of you that are unaware, the system was supposed to be, here is your paper, here is effectively a glorified hole punch. Line up the hole punch with the spot for whoever it is you want to elect. Crunch, cool. It pops out that spot so that there's no guesswork as far as to what you chose. But it didn't always completely pop out a piece of paper. Sometimes it was still attached. The infamous hanging chads. So I want to start off there because I know full well ain't gonna be no argument with me on this one that this is the worst positive voting system that has ever been designed, I think, and I would love to hear you guys try to tell me that I'm wrong.
Oh, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I'm going to tell you you're right because of how hard it was to actually get those things out. I got shown a ballot back in 91 in Washington State, and it had the same thing, but instead of the hole punch, it was something like a SIM card puller, a little piece of metal, and you used that to punch out the dots that were essentially your vote. Somebody showed me what their ballot looked like, and those things were hard to punch out to make sure that you got the right one punched out. What's wrong with a piece of paper with your candidates' names on it that you mark an X or fill in a circle like you would do with the old ABCDE tests?
Scantron.
That every single kid has had to do for the last, 50 years.
Or anybody that participates in the lottos that fill in their own numbers.
Yep. But no, let's have the hanging chads. I remember the news reports. I remember seeing somebody holding a ballot up at eye level, flat, and you could see the hanging chad, but there was like 2 or 3 of them, so you couldn't actually tell if it was which vote was the one that was the actual vote, like which choice. And yeah, it was.
The thing about that was the people who actually wrote out the name to make sure that their intentions were clear on who they had voted for, that constituted a spoiled ballot. So those got tossed.
Yeah, because it was considered a defamation of, is that the right word? Of the ballot.
Not the right word, but yeah. Destruction.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, Seeker.
Destruction,
see over
defacement.
there.
Yes,
Hey.
defacement.
Yeah.
Seeker.
Yeah, and Tech, I wanna get your piece on this one because there's a piece about that whole fiasco that I specifically want you to kind of chime in on. The piece where they wanted to try to do a hand recount of these things. Now, the reason why I want yours on this one is because of, quote unquote, the meta of it. If the problem was that the chads were there and they were partially exposed, just the process of rifling through, of removing one page could be enough to actually influence whether or not one of those chads gets popped off because it frictions against something else and otherwise spoils the count. No?
Correct. So one of the things that we have in this country is called an electoral college. Okay, and when you vote, it influences how the members of the electoral college cast their votes. We don't actually have a true republic. We have a democratic republic in this country. True republic would be one person, one vote. That one vote goes for that one person. That's the count. Have a nice day. But due to the Electoral College, you have states like California, um, the the members of the Electoral College that represent California have 55 total votes. But if you go to Texas, they only have 38. Florida has 29. New York has 29.
Um,
Pennsylvania only has 20. I believe my state has somewhere around, I don't know. I think it's in the tens to low teens. I can't remember. I remember the other ones, because I have an infographic, and
um,
the other one's not clear
Chief,
because my state's small.
Chief.
But the point is that if you remove some of these and fudge them, that could fudge the electoral vote process from the Electoral College, which could swing it in favor of the other candidate.
Yeah, you kind of butted into an area that I was wanted to get into later. I was kind of wondering where you were getting to because I wanted to specify into the physicality of those
Well, you
ballots.
were asking me if, like, they remove one single person's vote, can it affect who gets voted for?
Oh no no
Yes,
no
but it goes through.
no.
I'm
What
sorry, that's how I took it.
Gotcha. Yeah. What I wanted your input on was the actual physicality of the ballots themselves because of the design. That just the process of trying to recount them would change the outcome because the way they were
Not
designed, they could
necessarily.
because some of these chads could get ripped off in the process of shuffling the papers about themselves, that in and of itself could have a change in the output because hanging chad was considered not a vote but full removal was. You see where I mean now?
All right, yeah. So what you have is you have what's called the human element, and the human element is prone to error. We are human. I mean, just look at operating systems designed by humans and to be used by humans. You think we would know best what humans need in that respect, and yet we still have major complications making a perfect operating system. Um, and when you're talking about something even as simple as picking up a piece of paper and going, this is for candidate A and this paper over here is for candidate B, fine, that's one and one. And then you recount them and you've got stacks of hundreds, if not thousands of potentially thousands of papers, depending on how they break it out. Something could fall out of the pile into a garbage can, or it could fall into a different stack, and they're just counting the stack and they're not actually, their eyes are tired, they've been at this for hours. Human beings need rest, and there is a both an emotional and kind of a stamina, uh, um, take a hit when you're staring at papers nonstop for hours, just sitting there looking through paperwork. I know because I do it for the government. And um, not the election process. I have nothing to do with that. I'm not a volunteer or any of that kind of stuff. But I do have to look through paperwork. Now I'm lucky. My paperwork's digital, so I can organize it pretty easily and it stays put. But the physical paper stuff, all it takes is one spilled drink or one just it's so easy as a human being to make a mistake. So if there's a recount, I would hope that a fresh set of eyes would come in and go, okay, this is how it's sorted. These are the stacks. We don't move anything from one stack to the other. And we just count in the stack and make sure that this stack is exactly what it's supposed to be. Verify candidate A, verify candidate A, candidate A, candidate A. But even then, right, you've got the human condition of our bodies physically, not just our brains. Your eyes start to blur. I have poor vision. I wear glasses. I'm blind without my glasses, and I'm not exaggerating that. If they didn't have anything called glasses or corrective lenses, I would qualify as legally blind. So you know, it's really hard to sit through that process, man. And
I was
with
gonna.
something this important, you know, having the digital count system and having them processed by a secure system and uploaded to secure servers where it can be stored and analyzed, to me, that's actually a bit safer as long as they're air gapped once they're stored. And by air gap for the people who are not technically savvy who are watching this, your computer is physically connected to the internet. Now, if you unplug your internet connection, turn off your wireless router, unplug the cable, however it is that you have it hooked up, your system is now air gapped from the internet connection. It's not connected to the internet. Likewise, you have servers that are connected to main systems, they store data, and then they're air gapped so they can't be infiltrated. The only way to access them is what we refer to as local access, meaning you have to be physically present to be there to access these systems, right? Yeah, a thumb drive not plugged in is now air gapped from the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's literally air between it, hence the phrasing. So if depending on the security of how the digital results are stored, okay, it can be potentially safer and more accurate than paperwork. But I also agree with a certain old timer mentality that having a paper backup is ideal because we in the tech field, we know hard drives can crash. Even with today's solid state technology, we know things can go wrong. Systems can fry. You know, the wrong amount of moisture in a server room in a server farm is a bad day. And I'm not even talking about heat differences. Okay? So, yeah, I got to shorten it up. So, yeah, if you're relying on recounts, it could potentially cause a change in numbers. Hopefully that change would be swing on the pendulums. If you're looking at, like a pendulum, hopefully that swings in the favor of more accuracy. But there's a greater than zero chance it'll swing the other way. Hence why I think you should always have the digital storage used as the primary, and if a recount is required, then you resort to the paperwork.
Yeah. Over on the live chat, Stephanie was pointing out, if I could offer one cheering thought over here, it was doom and gloom about how Starmer would never be voted in. Labour ended with 411 seats in the House of Commons out of 650. I had commented, so more than half helps them. I apologize. It was supposed to have been dry humor because, well, yes, it is more than half, and that absolutely helps. But I was dry humoring it because, as I understood it, if you have a plurality of people coming together, parties coming together on an issue, because in the UK there are several groups, as opposed to over here where there are two main and then there's like 0.5% of everything else, that it would help them get things accomplished, which in some circumstances could also be considered steamrolling. I get that. Or road rolling, depending as to where you're growing up from. I don't know that I ever asked. Did you do some election voting while you were still up Canada way, didn't you?
No. In order to do an election, in order to be part of the general election in BC, as a citizen of BC, I would have had to have been there in April. However, the previous election, I was a poll supervisor. I had 5 polls plus an absentee poll that I was watching over. And I was the one in charge of handing out the ballots to the voting officer and making sure that the poll clerks had their list of electors. But once I handed the ballots to the voting officers, they were 100% legally responsible for the ballots that they had in their hot little hands. If something went wrong with those ballots, they could be brought in front of a judge and have to answer for it. And with this last election, I'm just looking at when the key dates were. Advanced voting started on October 10th. Final voting day, the actual day of the election, was October 19th. The final count was supposed to be October 26th to 28th. They did not have a government picked until Halloween, October 31st. maybe it was the 30th, maybe, but I'm pretty sure it was the 31st. I'm sitting there watching the news and watching all this and just shaking my head. I was being harassed by the party that's now again in power, so they were reelected, to vote for them. And I was being harassed daily, getting messages on my phone, getting emails, and I was telling them, leave me alone. I can't vote. I cannot vote. There are at least 2 seats that are still not quite decided for. They're up for judicial recount, which means that every single ballot that was cast in those 2 ridings will be counted out in front of one of the BC Supreme Court judges. Every single last one of them. When you're voting in Canada, first off, you have the right to privacy. You also have the right to have somebody help you vote. If you're blind, they will give you a braille thing that you stick your ballot in, and one of the elections officers there will help you by reading out the names for you behind the ballot box, but they do not touch the ballot once it's in that little, it's either plastic or metal, I forget. I think I saw one that was plastic. And even the blind can vote. If you're deaf, you can vote. If somebody can swear that you're a Canadian citizen, you can vote. You don't even have to bring ID. And
Yeah, and as
I'm going to have
you finish.
I have worked every single position in Elections BC and or Elections Canada as a volunteer, from the enumerator, which goes around and gets the names of the voters, up to the poll supervisor. So I've been the poll clerk, I've been the voting officer, the deputy returning officer, which is what the federal calls it. I've also been an alternate, sitting there waiting for one of the people if they needed a break, like just to go to the bathroom. I've also been the supervisor, and I've been the absentee person as well as the information officer. So yeah, it's I see what's happening in the US elections and I just start banging my head on the wall.
Yeah, from a security perspective, Brigid, I want to get you on this one now. We've seen the news reports of various early voting drop boxes, especially, or even just U.S. Postal Service boxes that have been, what's the general word that I'm looking for here? Accosted, molested, turned into a flaming heap. I guess the question I've got.
I'm going to call it outright terrorism if it's the definition of terrorism, trying to do things of a political nature to change the government.
No, that's
So let's call it what it is.
okay. Then I guess the question that I've got for you about that one is how do I boil it down into what the fuck?
But at least, having said that, some of the boxes did have flame retardant materials inside, so at least it couldn't burn all of them, but the attempts have been made
Yeah,
in 4 different states. That's
yeah,
kind
and
of
Washington,
concerning.
Vancouver, Washington, and Portland, Oregon both had ones that went up in flames.
Mhm.
And they've actually told people to watch their ballots, and if they don't think that their ballot was counted, to go to an elections place and recast their ballot, because you have a right to cast your ballot. You have a right to have your opinion known.
yeah,
In
and
Canada, shit like that wouldn't happen, because if you are the voting officer, deputy returning officer, you're not just responsible for the ballots, you're responsible for that box. That box is sealed in a specific way, and when it comes to counting, it has to be opened in a specific way and dumped out and shown, and even the flaps on the bottom of the box that aren't glued down on the inside have to be moved to show that and prove to people who are there as scrutineers to make sure that there is nothing missing. What's going on with this, with the ballots going up in flames?
Yeah. So
See people
I'm gonna
stealing
save
them
that
out
for.
of mailboxes, and especially in certain zip codes, there have been GOP candidates who have gotten caught pilfering ballots
oh yeah.
out of
Yeah,
people's mailboxes. Um,
my husband, my partner, my other half, he was not able to vote because somebody had put him on the inactive voter list when he was voting the last several elections. He was on the inactive voter list. He had to go down to the elections office in Southern California, I think it was Santa Ana, I could be wrong, and say, "Hey, where's my ballot?" And he had to physically get one there and return with it. The day we left, in the last mail that we got, there was 2 ballots for him. But it was because he complained. He did research, he checked it in, and he did all that. He's got those 2 ballots. They're sitting on our coffee table, but he also returned the one that he was given in Santa Ana after he went through it all and did his voting and sealed it up and actually hand delivered it to our local mailman.
Cool.
So his ballot is in.
All right.
I
So
ran into problems voting.
no. God
Yes,
damn
I
it.
did. Yes, I did. I was finally able to pitch enough of a fit to where I could vote, but there was a discrepancy with my name, which I did not change. Now, my driver's license, my passport, my voter registration were all in my legal name, as it should be. I haven't moved or anything. However, when I ran for office myself, I asked to be listed another way, uh, on my candidacy papers because of how people know me. You
Okay.
know, be like if somebody, whose name was like Buster went by Buddy and everybody knew them by Buddy and they ran for office as Buddy, that kind of a thing. Um, but because I am known by something other than my full legal name and
Right.
had requested that I be, you know, put on the ballot as that name, that is what they have in their system. So when I called the voter registration office to make sure that that was not going to be an issue, I was assured that no, everything was cool. It's not going to be an issue. I showed up to vote, and some old bitch tried to make it an issue. And she's like, "Well, when did you change your name?" And I said, "I didn't. This is what they did to me when I ran for office myself, and I did not change it."
And that was a number of years ago now, wasn't it?
Yes. And I said, "Yeah, this is my driver's license. This is my signature. You have me on there. And there's not a problem here." And she's like, "Yes, there is." And I'm like, "No, there is not. I called yesterday and spoke to the registration office, and they assured me that this is not going to be a problem."
I think it's fair for us to kind of go through a little bit on the. Like I said at the top of the show, I'm going to try really hard to keep us, not in the. But I don't know how else to word this one, and I'll throw it open for all of us at this point. The fuckery that has been going on. There have been a number of news stories where there have been voter roll purges. There's no other way of describing it. Where dozen of thousand of people have been removed from voter rolls for various reasons, some of which are legit, or at least seemingly so, according to what the official word is. But the fact that it's been happening in areas very specific areas, targeted areas, demographically identified areas, and most egregiously within a certain time frame before the election itself. And to add on top of this bullshit sandwich, the fact that it was brought up to the Supreme Court of the United States, meaning the highest law of the land, who went ahead and said, yeah, there's a law that says that you're not allowed to do this within, I forget what it is, 30 days, 90 days, 90 days of an election. But you know what? It's fine. It's fine. Even because what are you going to do? We say it's okay. Doesn't matter what the law says. It's okay.
Which makes a precedent in court cases.
Yeah, not that that really matters to the Supreme Court anymore, because the fuck do we consider?
They have no precedent anymore. They make up what they want.
So you can't even register on election day to vote?
Well, that depends.
That depends on the state.
Yeah, that depends on the state. Some states allow you to do in-person registration. Cool. Love that. There are others where they will give you a provisional ballot, which is effectively the equivalent of doing a mail-in ballot, because it has to be held until it can be established one way or the other if it's a valid ballot, if it's a valid voter. If it is, it's added to the mail-in set and it's counted that way, which, I mean, you're not voting on election day with the, tabulated vote at that time, but you've still voted, which, I mean, can only help. But
it's at least a practice vote. I've got the stats for BC's latest election. There's a partial recount in Kelowna, specifically Kelowna Centre, in Surrey City Centre, and this is not me swearing, Wandafuka Malahat.
Okay.
There's actually a district called Wandafuka. I have a joke about that too some other time. Those three areas will have judicial recounts where every single ballot will be shown to a judge to determine if it's valid. It doesn't have to be right up into his face, but at least in the room counted.
Okay. Stephanie pointed out something over here, by the way.
And
sorry, go ahead, finish.
Yeah. It's gonna be
okay. We're having a little bit of a problem with your system talking to us, so we'll give you a minute. We'll see if the Wi-Fi behaves itself again. Stephanie pointed out over here.
Did you lose me?
Yes, we kind of have. Yeah, we'll see if that works out. So Stephanie said, in the UK, we actually have a system where candidates put their official names on the paperwork, as good. So I'm assuming, legal name, but have a known as opportunity. I mean, perfectly reasonable to be able to do that. And if there was such a thing, I mean, was that how it ended up working for you, Bridge?
No, because there's not enough screen space to put all of that on there because of space limitations.
So it was just the one name.
Okay. But people who know me in real life knew that it was me and voted for me. So if they had seen it listed the legal way, they would have been like, who?
Gotcha. Yeah.
I'm back. Big shout out to the Hilton Express or the Holiday Inn Express, whatever it is. Holiday Inn Express, where we're at, with a non-functioning toilet that we actually have to use the plunger on the back to flush. We have to pick it up, whatever it's called, the floaters, plunger, whatever.
The crapper.
And the fact that the Wi-Fi keeps cutting out.
It's hotel Wi-Fi is what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Holiday Inn Canada, perfect. We had lots of help from the staff. It was clean. It was oh well.
Yeah.
But while I'm ranting, I'm going to insert a little anecdote that is related to voting experiences.
Sure.
But my mom, my mom thinks it's just freaking hilarious that people in her precinct were showing up to vote wearing garbage bags. I do not find this funny at all.
No.
Garbage bags? Okay, what are they trying to say?
Okay,
That
let me
they're
hold
proud.
hold on, hold on.
Go ahead, Shujin.
Because I don't know specifics on this one. I want to take a somewhat educated guess, and you tell me how close I am on this one. It could be a silent protest of saying, yes, we are garbage people who are voting. B, we are people who are voting for garbage intentionally, meaning the whole I'm voting for the convicted felon. Or C, and this is the one that pisses me off the most, that they are making a visual representation of the accusation, an unproven conspiracy theory accusation, that there are garbage bags full of invalid votes that were just simply dumped into polling places, skewing the votes, and this is their way of protesting in their own infantile methodology. How close am I?
They're wearing it as a badge of honor, like they wore deplorable as a badge of honor.
Yep. So it's number one.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Bingo. Even Don Jr. dressed up as garbage for Halloween as part of his costume.
I mean, it's kind of pretty much every day since the kids' charity for cancer was found to be basically just a slush fund, and they were taking money away from cancer kids. But I mean, sure,
He thought
yeah.
it was just hilarious to wear, a black hefty trash bag with assorted paper and garbage attached to it, and he was proud to do it.
Tech?
It's kind of like the same thing like the cultists who were running around wearing diapers outside of their clothing.
And maxi pads on their ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tech, real quick. You go into what is otherwise a somewhat secure location in order to use a piece of paper that is of some actual legal significance, and you are enclosed in an opaque something or other that absolutely could be housing, or actually does have, if you move around you can hear it, pieces of paper in it. As someone that knows a little something about security, go for it.
All right, so if I go into a secure area, okay, and there's a lot of different names for them depending on which branch you go to. And I know that there is there are secure filing cabinets. They're as heavy as safes because they're made to be safes, but they have a filing cabinet function. Many of them have multiple locking systems and everything else, and those are rated for. They're all have different ratings for different levels of classification depending on what your needs are. So if I go into an area, and let's just say this area is a secure room, meaning I had to be vetted to get in there in the first place and have a need to get in there as well. And I know that all paperwork, unless it's being actively used, is supposed to be secured. Even though it's in a secure room, you're still supposed to secure this stuff, right? Because somebody could accidentally get access to the room. It's another means of security. If I'm in there and the lights aren't working and I hear the crunch of paperwork under my feet, the first thing I'm doing is getting out of the room, securing it, and getting my security people and saying, hey, I just walked in there, the lights ain't working. I was walking around and I heard paper under my feet. get some flashlights, get some security people who are rated for that room. Something is wrong. And then I wash my hands of it. Other than potentially having to write up a report of what I experienced, maybe I saw some light coming through the doorway, whatever. But the thing is at that point, it's on security to figure out what the hell's going on and take action. They're trained for that. I'm not.
Okay, so
Okay.
that is high security. Now, how about civilian um, local courtroom, local town courtroom where they're using it as a place where people are coming in to vote, and they've obviously got the shaker bag around them with loose paper and knowing full well that they're like legally binding ballots in their hands now. What do you think these people are going to do?
Nothing good. And by good, I mean nothing appropriate. Let's just say that there might be someone who would argue, oh, well, they were just securing it. Well, first off, you don't secure anything in a plastic bag. Not even the secure shred bins. These are bins that are locked that when you have to get rid of, each bin has different ratings for different areas. When you put something in it, it stays in there. You can't get it back. It's gone. And then there are bonded agencies that are responsible to come get that, empty it out, and securely destroy it. So again, depending on and how they do that is completely dependent upon classification. But these things are locked and sealed, or locked, and they don't have bags in them because the whole thing gets carted away and replaced with a fresh one. They don't open them on site. So you can't tell me that, oh, the bin fell over and it fell open. It was like they're bullshitting somebody who's actually seen what kind of locks they put on these things. And as far as a courthouse goes, I'm not sure how they handle that stuff. I know how the military handles that stuff, at least the branch that I contract with. But for a courthouse, and I've been into courthouses thanks to custody battles, I have never seen shred bins lying around. I've seen shredders. So if somebody's got a bag of shredded material, I think that they're replacing it. They've replaced the bag and they're taking out the garbage. But if they have stacks of unshredded paper in a garbage bag,
No, that they're
uh,
wearing, that they're wearing.
or they're wearing it, um, something's not right with the world at that point. Something, as the saying goes, something wrong here.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard of a lot of different protests. Brigid, wasn't it you that told me that last week that there was somebody who was wearing a candidate's T-shirt and was told, no, you can't do that, and they turned it inside out so that it wasn't completely visible because it was considered election canvassing at that point?
I mean, normally that's how it works. However, I mean, that's, normally people will go into, the restroom, whatever you want to call it, and turn their shirt inside out and come back out. But this year, the rules seem to have changed, or people are not abiding by that. Um, I know that when my husband went to go vote here, um, there were a group of men that were wearing, Trump shirts, and were told you cannot come in and vote wearing those. And so, of course, they had to do the manly thing and just rip the shirts off and go in bare chested and vote. And then there was a woman in New Jersey that was an older woman. There are pictures of her you don't want to look, trust me, that had shown up to vote wearing a Trump shirt, was told she was not allowed to come in there with that. So she just took off her shirt and went in and voted in her bra. It was real classy.
Was it at least a nice looking bra? Was it at least clean?
I don't know that it was clean, but she was, had rolls of fat and was not attractive and was just,
Meh.
and after cussing out the poll workers and telling them to suck her, I won't repeat it, and called them various names. It was real classy.
I can't believe I'm going to say this. I am 95% certain that we can guess what their downvote choice was from that kind of interaction.
Yeah, and then there was a case in Baxter, Texas, where a man was told to take off his MAGA hat when he voted, and he refused to do it. And they said, you cannot vote unless you take that off. So he flung it and assaulted the poll workers. And now he's been charged with felony assault on an elderly person because he punched an elderly poll worker in the face. Which, if you do that in Texas to someone who is aged 65 or older, that's a felony.
I believe FAFO is the expression right about now, no?
So yeah, they arrested him and booked him. You just don't do that.
For anybody, for any reason, is unfamiliar with the current known term of FAFO, let's fuck around and find out. And boy, howdy.
He did. Yeah, he did.
MAGA seems to enjoy FAFOing all over the place.
But and I just posted something in the host chat. But apparently, electioneering is okay this year in Ohio. That they've put out guidance and said that if people show up in campaign attire, to go ahead and let them vote.
All right.
Some of the poll workers are expressing concern now because they think that that may cause some intimidation and violence.
Yeah, the problem.
Of course, it's going to cause intimidation and violence. Canada specifically has laws against anything like that. You cannot have any of the signs, the political signs, within X amount of meters of a polling place. You cannot, if you're one of the volunteers working the polls, you have to wear black and white, which is the Elections BC and Elections Canada official colors, black and white, just plain. You can't have any logos on it. You can't have any other colors. You can't have green. You can't have orange. You can't have blue. You can't have red, which are the colors of several of the main political groups in Canada, both federally and provincially. And they kind of loosened it up about cell phones because cell phones were required for safety because there was incidents at other places in previous elections where if they hadn't had the cell phone, things would have gotten really, really bad. But you cannot show up wearing election gear if you're voting. You cannot. The MAGA hats would be not allowed. The MAGA shirts would not be allowed. The burning witches shirts would not be allowed. Shirts that are the la shirts would not be allowed.
Right.
None of that would be allowed if to walk in. You would actually have to change your shirt or come in shirtless. Canada, it's legal to be without a bra. You can be completely topless in a public place in Canada. So that's not a big deal. As for the fat rolls, why are you body shaming somebody who wanted to go vote?
No.
Well, I just think it was like a disgusting act for her to just rip off her shirt and then cuss out people and then just act out like that.
Well,
that was not classy.
Let her be unclassy. Swearing at people, okay, fine, I get that. Taking off her shirt, at least she's following directions. It might not be the right thing for her to actually do. Like, take it off, put it on inside out, and then go in. But, at least she was able to vote.
Yes. And we, again, as much as we are concerned for people who are voting in a particular fashion, we will always stand behind. We want people to vote, period. As distasteful as we might view their choices, we still want folks to vote. Now, the thing about this that I just wanted to think about really hard is that I don't know that there is a legal foothold for the government, meaning the polling system, which is an extension for the government, to keep individuals from wearing whatever attire they would choose based on the First Amendment. Because I can see the argument simply being, we are not members of the candidate's elections group. I am a private citizen. Why are you preventing me from having my speech? The downside, of course, the opposite side of that, of course, is that there shall be no political speech inside of X radius by anyone for any reason, period, end of story, because it's supposed to be neutral ground.
Well, it is supposed to be neutral ground, and what bothers me is there is actual voter intimidation that is going on. Case in point, in Florida, there was it was a group of 5 people, and only one of them was charged as an adult because his, buddies were underage, and so they had not listed their names. But you know which story I'm talking about, or you don't.
I don't, but
He shows up at a polling place and sees some older people that are, going there to vote for Harris. His purpose was to go down there and terrorize people. So he brings a machete with him and starts intimidating people. So, of course, he got arrested for, threatening assault with a deadly weapon. But yes, he and his friends thought it would be funny to go down there with machetes and harass people who were voting.
yeah, it's real fun when you find out that you're over the age of majority. Which, by the way, in New York State, the age of majority, meaning when you can be charged as an adult and legally should be, is 16. So if you're thinking about doing something, really egregious, 15 is like the last hurrah for you. No, we are not advocating you do anything stupid in New York. We're saying that kids who have done that in high school and they're suddenly, hey, I got my car and I'm fine because, I'm still a teenager. What do you mean I'm being charged in as an adult? How can that be? I'm only 16.
No, it just horrifies me that anybody would even pull that kind of stunt. Yet it's happening.
Yeah, there's been threats against election workers all over the United States, and that's actually scary to me. I was too late in volunteering for one of the polls here, or I would have. I believe in a person's right to vote that much and that strongly that I'm willing to give up an entire day, if not more, in order to allow other people to vote. And that's what I did in Canada. Sometimes it was one day, sometimes it was a week because of the advance polls. It's what I did because I believe so strongly. And I was actually furious when my ballot for the last Canadian federal general election didn't show up until December 20th, 2021, 3 months late. And I made sure that my address was right. I made sure that Elections Canada had my address weeks before the writ was dropped. That's when the elections start. We don't have election years. We have about a 38-day minimum to maybe about 60 days for when the elections will happen, and they can happen at any time. And right now in Canada, there is a screaming fit happening within the Liberal Party of Canada. People are trying to oust Justin Trudeau, and if he gets ousted, or if the other federal parties combine forces, that's the NDP, the Bloc Québécois, and the Conservatives, if those 3 parties join up they can cause a vote of non-confidence and cause the Canadian federal government to fall, which means an election. So I'm waiting to see if I get disenfranchised for a second time.
Yeah.
And while all that's going on for me as a Canadian living abroad, I'm also watching in the States, hearing reports of election workers being attacked or threatened with attacks, the ballot boxes being burnt, ballots going missing, being found in ditches and whatnot. It's just,
Yeah. And
how do Americans even get an actual election to happen with all this? It's like
Usually,
everybody is working against it.
yes. Usually, kicking and screaming is the American mentality.
yeah.
To answer your question on that one. And the worst part about the burning of the ballot boxes is that it's going to be hard to track down the people who voted that way, because unless they send out a global message to all the people who were approved to vote by early through these ballot box systems or whatever, that hey, your ballot may have been destroyed. Here is a alternate form. Here's a replica form to fill out and submit. However, please be aware that if we do find yours and this one differs from the original, the different one will not be valid. That's how I could see it being, a good human attempt at correcting the issue, but that is going to make more work. So whoever destroyed the boxes, they either permanently destroyed the votes, depending on whether or not people will be allowed to redo, or they've just impeded the process heavily. And no matter what, it comes at a cost to the taxpayer. So every single taxpayer in this country should be up in arms over this, because it is a waste of our money.
Yeah,
And
every
there's one
single
thing a
taxpayer
lot of
should
Americans
be.
seem to love is money. But we live in a capitalist society, so of course we would. But let's
Up,
not get into that.
No, it
up in
doesn't
Can
help.
up
It doesn't help that there's not a uniform standard across the country, that it's just a patchwork of like 50 different states doing things different ways. And so, yeah.
I have a thing about that though. By the way, I was just looking it up, which is why you saw my face getting super uber white, because web pages don't believe in dark mode apparently. The electoral college system, broken that it is at the moment, apparently the votes have to be okay, here it is. Electoral votes must be received, reminding you, from each of the individual states, received by the president of the Senate, which is the vice president, and the archivist no later than the fourth Wednesday in December. This year, that would be Christmas. That's what I was looking up, December 25th. Now, the Electoral College system, first off, it's hilariously dumb. There were some good reasons for doing it. There are some noble reasons, but it is ultimately dumb. There are a number of states who have joined into an overall compact to say whatever candidate gets the highest number of popular votes across the country, our electoral college votes will be going to them, regardless of what our individual state might have done. Now, I want folks to understand that this is not exactly a good thing or a bad thing. It is a system that is supposed to reprioritize the fairness of actual voting. If the concept that we have been brought up with, and some of us believed, the romance of the one person, one vote mantra, the only way for that to happen, to be quite right, where literal every person actually has the opportunity of swinging the vote, is for exactly this, for it to be based on the popular vote. Because it is entirely possible to lose entire states because of the way that the electoral college system operates. And that's part of the reason why there have been several times over the last, 20, 30 years, where Republican candidates have won the electoral college and lost the popular vote. It is a system that fundamentally does no longer work in the modern age. Part of the idea for it was that the electoral college were supposed to be people who were smart enough, ethical enough, sober enough, not from the inebriation standpoint, but sober enough people who would go, you know what? The candidate that the population of my state have voted for is not a person of good standing, of moral character, and should not be in that office. I instead will cast a vote for who I think is actually better versed. And it's a lofty goal. I mean, it's a wonderful concept. But the problem, as we've seen and we've discussed, is that people who have that level of moral character are harder and harder to find, to get them into positions of being able to do that. I mean, I would not have any problem with any of the people that we deal with the people who have been hosts on the show, standing up and saying, you know what? I don't agree with what's happening over here, but by the rules, by how it's supposed to operate, this is what I have to do. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that, even though I don't want to. I got no problem with that. I have no problem with any one of us being that honest. But the problem is, we know full well that there is an entire third of my country that doesn't believe that there should be any kind of rule whatsoever like that, and oppose getting rid of the electoral college for exactly that reason, because it has been and continues to be gamed. And it's just wrong. In the modern age, it is simply wrong.
Now the rule of law here no longer matters.
So it would seem. By the way, going to that, Stephanie had also pointed out, and I'm kind of backtracking just a little bit, saying that, where was it over here? SCOTUS have lost all credibility. Expect President Kamala to take measures. I had mentioned I'm waiting for SCOTUS to be expanded into the same number as judicial districts, finally, which would put it at 13, which is not an arbitrary number. It is a reasonable number, because there should be one SCOTUS judge that presides over each of the districts.
Yep.
It simply makes sense. And then they all come together to deal with it all. Also, was there something else over there? Stephanie had also pointed out, I am waiting for SCOTUS to be purged.
Yep.
We're all waiting for SCOTUS to be purged. News reports from Canada said that if you were an American living abroad in Canada, the last chance you had to vote was on Friday. This is specifically for the Americans abroad in Canada. So there was polling places and booths for Americans in Canada to vote, and not just at the embassy.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's a different methodology than I thought you were talking about. Okay. And I misinterpreted. I am waiting for SCOTUS to be purged. I thought you meant SCOTUS as a whole, as opposed to the individual judges who are of questionable moral character to be finally gotten rid of, which I want that to happen in my lifetime. Thank you very much. Just saying. But be that as it may, we're getting really close to the top of this all, and Tech, you've had the least amount of time at the moment. Was there anything topic wise on this that you wanted to get in there, as opposed to me going ahead and directing at the moment?
Not really, because I mean, like, if people are truly interested in, uh, things like how the electoral college works or how the presidential system works, the whole election process, you can find that on USA.gov. That people underestimate some of these websites, just how much information's on there and how easy it is to find. And I know I'm talking about a government website of all places, but some things are made to be easily accessible and readable. And you know, when people go, e- every once in a while you'll hear somebody who's very skeptical because maybe they're only getting one news source or comfort reasons, echo tunnels, echo whatever. The thing is that our laws are published, our rules are published, they're made readily accessible for the people, because our government is supposed to be of, I'm going to get it out of sequence here, I know, so please don't kill me over this, but it's supposed to be for the people and of the people, by the people, and all that fun stuff, meaning we are the ones who are in charge of our government. Unfortunately, we have a lot of politicians, and I'm not even going to say it's one-sided, but we have a lot of politicians who have let power go to their head. And many of them will do just about darn near anything, if not everything, to keep that power, because power is addictive. If you've ever had control over something, there's an underlying emotional kind of attachment. We are, as human beings, naturally very emotional, and you might have control over something because you're required to by law, or maybe it's because of a position that you've acquired. You wanted to become whatever, or maybe it was assigned to you because it was other people felt that you were the best person for the job out of all the candidates, like a manager or a supervisor, or even just a team leader. Maybe you have the qualifications to make that team better, or maybe just more organized, which still qualifies under better. But I digress. Um, and then suddenly it's taken away from you, and maybe it's given to somebody else that you feel is less qualified, or you lose it because you made one mistake and the powers that be weren't forgiving. Okay, happens all the time. Again, we're emotional creatures. Resentment, anger, bitterness, these things make us do drastic things. And
These are the
just the
path to the dark side.
yeah, well, uh, there is something to be said about the dark side too, though. You know, um, helps maintain balance if you have both, because you can't have pure goodness. There's no true such thing, in my opinion. Um, there's balance, in my opinion. I would probably be one of the gray Jedi, at that point, or whatever they call them, the ones in the middle between the light and the dark of the sides of the Force. Um, and just the very concept of losing what you worked hard for, you studied for it, you literally bled for it, and suddenly now it's being threatened to be taken away. Some people don't react very well to that. A lot of people don't react. Who am I kidding? A lot of people don't react well to that. And politicians, just like the rest of us, are human, and they're prone to this. Um, it's really scary to watch a politician suddenly kind of about face just because of the potential threat of losing their position. You know, especially if they feel that the other person's actually going to do more harm than good, they might make poor choices in the attempt of trying to do good, but they end up having a negative effect. That happens too. It's not just bad people do bad and good people do good. We've talked about that concept on our channel enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's tough. You know, humans are very immature. We really are, emotionally speaking. We have a hard time controlling our emotions. We have a hard time focusing on the rational, especially when you look at how our education's not truly uniform, um, and constantly in a state of disarray for a long time now. Um, and then you have varying opinions of how to correct it. Some use facts and rationality and science and so on, and others just
Don't.
try to make it feel good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a tough thing. And like you were saying, like the electoral college, there are a lot of people that want to get rid of it. They understand that it's no longer truly a valid system anymore. When you have 15,000 votes or 15 million votes in the favor of one candidate between three states, and there's only, say, I don't know, 29 million votes between the three states total, but because two of those states had uh, more, just a little bit more in that shifted the electoral college's votes towards the other candidate, you have a situation where one candidate may have won the popular vote, but they didn't win the electoral vote. And so now the will of the people's actually circumvented. So the electoral college, like we discussed, it's an archaic system. It's an old system that was probably good for its time, but now it's actually hindering us and hurting us. And that's a bad thing. And there are people who want change, but it's going to take some kind of constitutional whatever to get rid of it and make it a true republic. But I'm pretty sure there's going to be people going out there going, "Oh, we can't have a republic. We're a democracy." It's like, dude, we're half and half already. And if we get rid of the democracy, if we get rid of the electoral college, we sway more towards a republic where one vote counts for one. And right now, a lot of the members of the GOP don't want that, because they know that it's easier for them to win with the electoral college than without it.
Yeah.
And I say that of the current mess. I historically, whatever. But I'm talking about the here and now. And the ones that are here and now know this, and some have even admitted it in passing and not with so many words.
Yeah. To help.
There would be at least two elections in the last 20-ish years where if the popular vote was the only vote, the president would not have been who they were.
Yes,
it would have been somebody.
The 2000 election and the 2016 election.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To help things along, over in the live chat, I have put the link to the wiki article about Schoolhouse Rock, specifically about America Rock. Schoolhouse Rock, for those of you that, for whatever reason, didn't know about it, began production in the early 70s. It was a way of making basically short cartoons to help kids be educated on subjects: math, science, government, history. Some of it has not aged particularly well. For instance, there is one in there about manifest destiny. However, there's also another one that's all about the Great American Melting Pot. That's literally the name of the song. And the fact that they created a song that actually has the preamble to the Constitution sung in such a way that it is memorable. Dude, they did an amazing job. But there are a couple of them that have been much more recently produced. And by much more recently, I mean much more recently than the 70s. That specifically has the piece about, the name of it is, let me find it over here. It is called, "I'm Gonna Send Your Vote to College." And it's specifically addressing how the electoral college system operates. It's, again, not the best system by any stretch of the imagination. Hopefully, it will one day be relegated to the bin of nothingness. Which I say that because, well, I don't like it, and I don't know anybody that does. So there's that. We are top of the hour, and we do have to see about closing up shop over here very shortly. Brigid, did you have anything that you wanted to close off with at the moment?
I just want to tell people to be careful of how they vote. I agree that people do vote for emotional reasons and things like that. But I would like to remind people that if you quote unquote think it can't happen here, it can. George Takai was, taken to a concentration camp when he was 5 years old. And at that time, they were arresting Japanese people who were 1/16 Japanese, who were full American citizens. If you think that your citizenship status will save you or can save you, if things go sideways, you are horribly mistaken. With someone like Stephen Miller, if you're not familiar with him, do some Google on him. Advocating for a wider America, a more American America, which is code for, anybody who happens to look indigenous or, darker than somebody from Norway gets rounded up and sent to a camp or deported or whatever. This is what we're up against. And people who think that it cannot happen to them because of your, past voting or, documentation status or whatever, you're wrong. It can, and if we're not careful, it will. This is important. And I think that the speech at Madison Square Garden that, took place Monday kind of brought that home to the Puerto Ricans who thought, yeah, he's my man, he's on my side. Puerto Ricans are American citizens. And then it's like, it doesn't matter. People like Stephen Miller, Steve Bannon do not consider you as citizens. And so that citizenship will not save you. You can wind up in a camp just like anybody else. It could happen to us because we're here speaking out now.
Let's hope
that is what is at stake here.
There. Tech, you got anything quick to finish out with?
No, I'm good.
All right. Io, balls in your court.
My grandfather on the Canadian side of my family and his father both served World War I, World War II. My grandfather was a merchant marine. I'm not sure what my great-grandfather was. My grandfather on my American side was U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force. He was both. He switched at one point. Also served during World War II and further. My father was a Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps. I have lots of American cousins, uncles, etc. that all served. My grandfathers did not watch their buddies suffer and die for fascism to rise again. Never again. Never, ever again. Get out and vote. Let's have the blue wave happen.
I'm going to end you all with this. An argument that was made back in 2015, 2016. When people who lived through the rise of the Nazi Empire go ahead and tell you they saw this coming again, and they can lift their sleeve and show you the numbers still in their skin, and they tell you this is coming again, don't let it. When people who have experience and expertise in a topic tell you something, when people who have studied and have actual recollection and can show you literal chapter and verse where this has happened before and exactly the run that it's taking to get where it's getting to, and can show you the proper extrapolation to show you where things are going, whether it's in a physical science or a soft science like poli-sci. People, I will not ever sugarcoat this one. Fucking believe them. If you disagree with actual facts, if you disagree with actual experience, backed up with actual facts, if you disagree with potential outcomes based on actual facts, it's not that you have alternative facts, it's that you're fucking wrong. If you want to believe something cool, you want to believe that there is some celestial being out there, fine. You want to impose that living standard on yourself, that's fine. But your God help you if you try to impose that all on the rest of my country. We're not supposed to allow that to have happen. And the highest court in the land is supposed to be upholding that. Don't make violence the only verbiage left available. The election system is supposed to be combative in words and ideas only. It's not supposed to be a fucking bloodbath. Treat it as such. We know full well that this is not one of our usuals. I don't like, I've said it so many damn times, I don't like when we have to be on the show talking about something that is very too specific to this country, because the political system here in the United States, it's convoluted. We know that. We understand that. And we know full well that, unfortunately, the concerns, the anxiety about it is one of the grandest and far-reaching exports that this country has ever produced in the 21st century. On behalf of my entire populace, I am truly sorry to all of you who are outside the borders of the United States, who have to look at this dumpster fire and go, "Gee, shit, America, you guys are right over there?" The short answer is we're not. Honest and truly, we're not.
That's why you have me, the emotional support Canadian.
But we're trying. Want y'all to know. We're trying. We really, really are. There are a lot of pieces that need to have happen so that we get better. Far and away better than what we have been. Because we have been far and away better before. But as far as this show is concerned, so long as I have a place to record from, so long as there is an opportunity for our voices to be out there, we'll keep trying. Don't think we're going to give up on you. Don't give up on us. Thank you for being with us through all this, truly. We're going to do our damnedest. So, thank you for being with us. Like I said, we hope that you found something worthwhile in all of our perspectives and you got something to think about for the week ahead. Take care of yourselves. Stephanie, thank you. Greatly appreciate it. And Seeker, I haven't seen you chime in recently, so don't know if you're still there. Thanks for popping in even briefly. You take care of yourself. Io, thank you. Glad you're able to make it. You have yourself good, safe travels. The rest, and just thank you so much, hon.
Like I said, emotional support Canadian.
That's fair. Brigid, I'm glad you were able to make it twice in 2 weeks. That's kind of a record currently, I think, for you. Who gets your ire tonight?
I don't know. I'm so mentally exhausted.
That's a great way of tying it all to the opening about static and feeling the way that we are. Good callback. That was good.
I'm exhausted. Ugh.
Can I feed you one that maybe might help?
Decisions. Do we want to go with Charlie Kirk, or do we want to go with Nick Fuentes?
I was thinking something more like Mitch McConnell, because if it weren't for him, this fuckery wouldn't be going on.
Yeah. If he had, I mean, now, he can say behind closed doors or whatever that, well, we should have done something back then. And, he had, admitted that what happened was really skeezy, but he is why we are where we are. Mitch McConnell, go fuck yourself.
Big ol' on board on that one. Tech, thank you. Congratulations on making it through another night without falling asleep on me. And just thanks for being able to be here, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here.
And as always, as I've mentioned, again, if you need a voice, if you need to be heard, if you need somebody to talk to, or just a sanity check for yourself, be in touch with us over on the Discord. We've got the link for you over there in the show notes. I'll make sure that all of the stuff that we needed are in the show notes for you. Eventually, it's just give me a little bit of time to do that. Item last before we get out of here, though. Election night in the U.S. is beyond stressful. If you need to tune out and do something else, do it. Don't self-medicate. Don't be drinking. Don't take extra drugs. Don't do something that you otherwise wouldn't nominally be doing anyway. Play a video game. Write a piece of music. Play solitaire. Just know full well that your well-being is of paramount importance. We want you to be safe. We will not be live streaming because I'm going to be driving after work, which means at 6 p.m. local for me. I'll be getting on the highway, picking up my kid at college, driving, let's see, about 35 minutes down there, about 45-ish back to home so that we can vote together. And then another 45 back to get him back to college. And then another 45 for me back home so I can pass out, go to sleep, and get up in the morning to go to work again the next day. We will not be streaming. It's entirely possible that all the guys will be around on Discord anyway. Maybe not necessarily actively doing any streaming or whatnot, but if there are folks that want to be on and want to be in like a voice channel and whatnot, we've got the general channel open for exactly that reason. You drop in, you just want to listen, you want to put out a word as, like I said, at everyone, hey, I'm in the voice channel. If anybody just needs an ear, we're all in this together, man. Do what we can.
I plan on being there. I really do. I plan on being there. If not in the HCTV, then in the private channels.
Fair enough. So, like I said, we'll be here for you. We're all in this together. And if anybody remembers what movie that's from, you're my people. So, until minimally next week, as always, I wish you all the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well. And of course, my lady, I miss you on Halloweens. And I am still in love. Matane Fujin. I love you. I miss you. Dream of me. Till the next time we're together, everyone. As always, good night.